Carlos Sainz posted quickly after the race, tough weekend for us. Spencer, what did you make of Carlos finishing P5 and Charles Leclerc starting in P7 and finishing in the same spot?
Can I just call this like 2 degrees of underwhelm, right? Like, I don't want to say like massively underwhelming, but like, can I just give you 2 little notches on the dial of underwhelm? Because that's about where they are, right? If I told you that they had finished like 4th and 6th, if I told you they finished 3rd and 5th, that would be slightly better. This is where Ferrari lives at this point, right? Is that we go 2 degrees of underwhelm, 2 degrees of overperformance. They're always going to be right here at good. That seems to be where they're stuck right now, right? And where they'll probably be for the rest of the season, particularly with, like, I think we might take a few more degrees of underwhelm if the upgrades at Mercedes measure up to anything like what they are supposed to be. Then obviously they're going to look worse in comparison because our expectations are a zero-sum game, right? We cannot say good things about Mercedes without taking some chips away from Ferrari. That's just inevitable.
What do you think happened with Charles Leclerc? Because obviously some people were able to make overtakes around him in that train, but unfortunately he stayed in the same spot.
Yeah, it was a strange weekend for him. Obviously went very aggressive with the approach to that last lap in qualifying. And it was, I mean, he wasn't helped at the end. Obviously, he was on a different strategy to Lewis, who was able to come through on better tyres. So I don't think he really had any chance in that fight. But yeah, he seemed, whenever we saw Charles, he was just kind of stuck in either a DRS train or he had that weird fight with Magnussen where, Magnussen, I know there were different tyre strategies at play, but you wouldn't expect a Haas to be fighting Charlotte there. He got him straight back, but it was just bizarre, and you looked at it and you thought that's not kind of the fighting Charles that you usually see. So I don't know. I don't know whether he seemed, when we spoke to him here a few hours ago, he just he looked as dejected as you've seen him. We keep joking that he's going to go and write another absolute classic on the piano, but like that seems to be where he's at right now. Just very, very. I don't even think like miserable is the word. I think he's just really deflated, and I don't know whether that ties into how he races. I think these guys are all professional and they're good at leaving a lot of that at the door, but it must affect you in some way. You wouldn't be human if it didn't. So I think there's some of that.
I wanted to ask you about that, and Laurence as well. He never seemed comfortable this weekend.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't seem comfortable in the car, didn't seem comfortable at the track, bouncing all over the place, having serious issues with it. Not to give him credit where credit isn't due, but like, I didn't think once you saw him finish 7th, and I heard he ended up finishing 7th, right? I didn't think it, I was like, okay, that's getting through this weekend. Like, he was clearly uncomfortable and just was like, I'm going to stay right here. I think that's why he was in a fight with the Haas, is that I don't think he felt like he could be aggressive given how he felt with the car.
Yeah, he locked himself into what he said was quite an aggressive setup for qualifying, and I think Ferrari were quite confident coming into this race weekend. They felt it was a track that was going to suit them. And I think in his mind he thought, well, if I go super aggressive and have this really twitchy car in qualifying, maybe I can, even get amongst the Red Bulls like he did in Baku. Maybe at least I can be third on the grid and then just take it from there and hope that he can hold everyone off. And obviously it went wrong in qualifying in such a big way. But don't forget, he had an accident in practice, he had an accident in qualifying. When you have big hits like that, big shunts like that, it's going to chip away at your confidence, and also the mechanics have got to start putting the car back together. And as good as these mechanics are, sometimes, the car isn't quite right, isn't quite as perfect as it was when it first rolled out the pits on Friday morning. So I think there were quite a few setbacks to his whole weekend, and that's what happens. Nate made a very good point. I think it was after qualifying. Is that is Leclerc good enough to be a world champion driving like this? And it's not the first time we've seen it. He always is right on that very limit, which is why it's so exciting to watch.
Yeah.
But it's also the question mark over him of whether he's really on the level of Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso.
Because with those guys, you never see these weekends, really. I know Lewis has had a few weekends where he hasn't looked off it, but he often comes back through, and it's very rare to see that. So it is concerning. If you're Ferrari, you're probably looking at it right now. You've obviously Carlos Sainz, I think you were saying about the degrees of underwhelm. I think Sainz is good at turning that right up sometimes.
Yeah.
But Charles has been doing it as well recently. So if you're looking at the long term, I'm not sitting here saying Ferrari should get rid of both their drivers, but you've got to be looking at it. Red Bull and Mercedes, you look at their driver lineups, how they're performing at the moment. You're trying to get good performances out of two guys that want the best from Ferrari. Had that awful year last year where they thought we can be champions in March, and by June they were like, well, we're not even going to challenge for the championship. So I think there's a lot going on there behind the scenes. Obviously, Binotto's gone. I think it's just rough at Ferrari right now. I spoke to somebody who's very close to Sainz this weekend, and I got the impression that things are just they're kind of treading water in a lot of ways at this point. Culturally, a lot of things are changing. Obviously, the car's not where they want it to be, and I think that all in all, I think every race is just a bit of a slog at the moment for them.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content plus live streaming, make sure to subscribe to ESPN Player.